it's Leanne. Welcome to another video on my channel. I'm really excited today. I have the Himi Gouache, yay! I've been looking at this for a long time and I decided to finally pick it up. And yeah, I had my eye on this for a while. So I'm going to try it out and do a test of the swatches, I guess. Swatch each color and do a test painting. So let's check it out. So inside comes a palette, and this is really cool. I didn't know they had these. And it's white, which is nice because I've seen some that come with a palette that matches the color of the box, which is kind of useless. These wells here are tilted so you could put some stuff on each side, and it would keep your paint separate with the curve, I guess. And then this big mixing area. This is awesome. I'm excited about this. So here's a thank you card from Maya, I guess. So that's who I got the paints from. Included are some brushes. These are, I guess, gouache brushes. This is really super cute. It has birds on it. And if you know me, you know I love birds. This is really awesome. Let's get a close-up of these cute little guys. So this bird has like bird hands. That's interesting. And he's giving fruit to someone. Another bird with weird bird hands. That is so cute. Super cute. And oh, look, more birds. Oh, they look like lovebirds. That's cute. And the brushes match the color of the box, so that's cool too. So they're wooden handled. There's a 4, a 6, and an 8, so it looks like a 4. There we go. So it looks like a 4 round here on the first one. This paddle brush is an 8, and then this square is a 6. That's awesome. That should be great. This 4 looks like it'd be good for details with that fine point. And here is the mecca of colors. We'll see what's in here. These are 24, and these come in these little containers. Everyone comments that they look like pudding containers. I guess the plastic kind of feels like that. Our pudding containers here are square more than rectangular, so it doesn't really make me want to eat them. So before I start, I'm going to open all these containers up, and I know that people will, let me see actually. Oh, look, here's a color chart of all the colors. So this is helpful. I hope, let me see, there are colors that are listed here. It does say the name on them. So for example, this one says black, right there. So like, maybe I should do that. These colors, it looks like these colors are like set light to dark, brightest to darkest, with black being in the corner. But what I'm worried about is matching up the names. I was thinking I could match it to this layout. I think what I'll do is just write it down so I can have, when I peel all the lids off, I'll not know what's underneath. So I'm going to write all these down first, and then I have my paper towel to put all the lids on here. I know that people I've seen who use these will put them just all in there without the lids, and eventually they dry out, and then there's the whole deal of re-wetting them, I guess, reactivating them. And I know you can do that with gouache, just with some water and spritzing. These are probably student grade paints or just a lower grade, so maybe they don't wet as nicely, but yeah, I'm gonna do that anyways. I have an idea of how to keep them a little bit more fresh too. I'm gonna show you in the video. So I'm gonna write these down and then we'll get to opening them. I'm gonna have to stir these before I get into it, but at least we got them unboxed, which is great. Let's keep all the black we can because this is one of those colors that are used quite a bit. I'm so excited to paint with these. I got some ideas of different things I want to try, and just, I don't know if it would be paint that's my style or like art that's my style, but I'm just really excited to work with these and play with some ideas. So what do you think? These are, I think it's a good assortment of colors. Okay, so I have all of the gouache paints opened up as you've seen, And I have to stop for a bit, but I do want to stir these before I swatch them. So I'm going to show you my trick for keeping these fresh. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. So I just have some Glad cling wrap, and I'm going to put a bit over top of the paints. It's a little bit of a mess. I'm going to put this over the paints just to seal in some moisture. That corner is a little ripped, but I think it'll be fine. Just to keep it airtight, and I think that should keep it from drying out faster than not, and it's going to keep it from getting gel paints all over everything else. So I'm going to come back to this in a bit, and I'll swatch some paints for you, and we'll do a picture.
One eternity later.
Hey everyone, so I'm back. I took like a month break from this. Some things came up, and I set this aside, and I wasn't able to finish the video until now. And my intention was always to come back and finish this review. So I'm actually going to show you something I was planning on doing, and I think I talked about this when I was filming originally, the first part of this video, about how to preserve these paints. And so I did that, and I have not checked these yet. So we're going to find out together if this actually works, because I find with some videos I've watched, people talk about their Himi Gouache drying out and having to reactivate it, or going through this whole process of reactivating every little container, and that's like, I'm just about the least amount of work as possible. So if this cheat works, we're going to check it out and we'll see. In the meantime, I've made a card of all the colors that are in the palette in the order, I believe, based on my notes that I made. I found this paper that I wrote down all the colors. Hopefully I've got all these correct, but we're going to swatch them all, and then we're going to do a paint test too. I haven't painted with gouache since I was in college, and that was a hot minute ago. I don't even want to say how many years ago that was. And I never painted art. We did like mixing tests, and we did like block of colors, and like we'd take a letter and we'd have to make the letter perfect geometrically, and then we would have to paint it, and our paint flow would have to be even. There would have to be no bubbling on the canvas, and like it was all about technique. It wasn't about style. Wow. Okay. So if you look, I'll zoom in so you can see there's a bit of moisture inside. It looks like it might have kept, this is actually sealed pretty good. Up in this corner, it's kind of sticky. So I don't know what that is from, but yeah, look at that. They look like they've held their moisture. So hopefully, I mean, these look like they need to be stirred a little bit because they've settled. I'll replace this plastic wrap too. I'm not going to reuse it just because I don't want color contamination. It looks like a little bit of the blue got in the pink there. I kind of feel like maybe I should move that color away from something that's that dark. Yeah, I have no idea why it's all sticky. I mean, it worked to, maybe it actually came from the paints, like it's all over the plastic wrap. Hopefully this was okay. It's almost like a glue, like the binder. It feels like I've been playing with honey or something. I'm just going to take a corner of my paper towel and wipe the edge just to clean it up a bit. I think these stayed the way they need to stay. So let's swatch these out. I'm going to just put them in the order of the colors that I've written down. I don't know where I got this order from, but it doesn't look like it's right. But let me just write those down. So it seems that all the colors are in order. They just don't look like the names. So I put a little bit of water on this brush. This is a 1/2 inch Grumbacher. Yeah, so a 1/2 inch. I'm just gonna try swatching this color first. I'm finding that the paints kind of look greasy when they come out, so I'm wondering if it's just that they need to be stirred a little bit. In the pots, they don't look like there's oil sitting on top or anything like that, but I'm just gonna swish my brush around in them just a little bit before I put them down on the paper. And I also did not put water on my brush for this one. I dried it off pretty good. Because I know it's been so long since I've used gouache, but I know that as long as they're wet like this, and you want to have them like solid, you can see the difference there. They don't need water, but you can water them down because they're pretty much opaque watercolors. or the consistency can be used like watercolor. So what I'm gonna do is I've wet my brush, cleaned it, and I'm just gonna pull out some of this green to thin it out a bit. I think that's probably a bit better. I mean, outside of the one paint we saw that was pretty oily on top, and I haven't got to that one yet, that was the, actually the nude color. Everything else looks like it's pretty well blended. It might have been too that I just had too much water on my brush for these samples. This color's beautiful. I don't know if I'd call it a jade color, but it's still really pretty. Yeah, it almost seems like when I wet the gouache to water it down a little bit, it just has a weird texture. It has like an inconsistent texture to it. Like it's blotchy, and it acts like it's got oil in it. So oil and water don't mix, they're not smooth, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. You can kind of see it there. This color is really, really pretty. Yeah, it just seems if it thins out at all with water, it just gets splotchy and blotchy, and it's not really what I like or prefer. You can see it there, like just this open spot where there's a little bit more water. I would expect the pigment to kind of move around in the water and thin itself out, but still be consistently thin, not just look like it's a bad painting. This color is really pretty. Reminds me of a cornflower blue. This color's so pretty, and it says it's called purple, but it honestly is like a rose pink. This one's almost like an Indian red. It's got a bit of orange undertones. Now this one's called deep red, but it is more like a cherry red. It is deep, but it's like a candy red. And I'm really anxious to see how this dries because I find red is the hardest color to get a good consistency with. In watercolor at least, the red can look amazing like alizarin crimson. And as soon as it dries, it just kind of loses its vibrancy. It gets kind of flat and dull. And so I'm curious to see what this looks like when it's dry. These are pretty colors though. I think that they would mix together nicely and create a lot of ranges. If you look on the brush, the red has actually stained the brush in that short amount of time. So that's something to note. This one is ochre, which looks more like a, I wouldn't say a maybe burnt sienna. This one's really pretty. It's called rose. I would call it magenta. But this is a good base color for mixing. And the next one's called violet, and this one is super, super dark. For a purple. This one is cobalt blue, and it is like a cobalt, but it's darker. And I honestly think that this could have been, I don't know, maybe it's like more of a royal blue. I'm gonna try a little bit of water to pull this out a bit. I just am really not that satisfied with the way these work when they're diluted in any amount of water. I find that their strengths are when they're just pure, opaque, solid, and more dry than anything. Okay, this is Prussian blue. This is probably a color I'm obsessed with right now. I always find that I gravitate towards these dark kind of indigo colors lately. I'm not a big fan of the color blue on its own, but these rich kind of heavy weighted blues are just so pretty. This one's almost black. It is really, really dark, but you can see that it's got those blue undertones. Okay, the next one, which is such a contrast, I don't know why it's beside it, but is lemon yellow. Which is probably, this is outside of white, and maybe the nude color is the lightest color in this palette. Sitting beside probably the darkest color outside of black in this palette, which is really weird. I mean, when you're looking at all the containers together, it looks really pretty because it's balanced, but from a rainbow, like spectrum perspective, it doesn't really make sense that this one would be right beside the Prussian blue. Because there's a lot of chance of cross-contamination with this one. That one's pretty, very lemon yellow. I would say that one lives up to the name. Next we have nude, which this color I do need to scrub around. This one is probably the most settled of all the paints. And so this is really dry up here, and this is going to be super oily. And the oil that's in this looks like the stuff that was on the edge of the container when I opened it up. I honestly feel like it probably sweat or whatever, and somehow that traveled up onto the edges of the plastic wrap. I think when I package this up though, I'm still gonna put the plastic wrap over it one more time and try it one more time, see what happens. If it becomes an issue, then maybe I'll let them dry out. I just don't want to go through the hassle of having to reactivate these. I mean, when they're soft like this, because the plastic wrap has been on them, it's easier to mix the oil into the pigment. But if these were to dry and settle, where the oil would sit in one area and the pigment in another, like, that's going to be more work to reactivate when it's dry and more stiff. I don't think I want to do that, so I might just keep the plastic wrap on. I feel like that's the better solution. I don't think it's perfect, but I feel like it's the better solution. This cream peach color is really nice. This one's not too exciting, but I'm gonna swatch it anyways, which is the white. This one's really dry. I'm gonna put a little bit of water. I know you probably can't see anything I'm doing right now. Earth yellow. This one looks really pretty. This one I would call an ochre, almost like a dark ochre. Almost like just a basic ochre, I guess. It's not as dark as I thought it would be. It's pretty. I do have to say with these paints, they're very thick and opaque, which is what you want with gouache. And so that part of it I'm not disappointed with at all. This next one is just plain old orange. And that's basically what it is. It looks darker in the cup than when it's put on the paper. It seems to not be as opaque, and so it picks up a lot of that white. It's nice though. And I have a little bit of water on my brush too. And this one is burnt umber. Very pretty. This is one of those colors that you definitely need in your palette. It's definitely a staple, and it's probably one of the last colors I gravitate towards just because it's brown and perceived to be boring, but it's one of those ones that make everything else look great. It's kind of the base of the formation, I guess. And this one is ultramarine, our last true color. This is definitely an ultramarine. Very, very pretty. Very saturated. And the last color is black. This really has a blue undertone to it, but the cool colors are more my favorite, so I'm not upset about that. Looks really nice. Now that I've figured out how these work the best, I'm just gonna go over a couple of these colors at the top in more of an opaque form, just to get a better sense of what they look like. With these first few, I definitely added water to them. Yeah, you can see that this is a lot different without the water, but I do like how you can see that it changes its properties with the water. This one looks more yellow for sure. Maybe I'll leave just a little bit peeking through so I have that reminder of what it looks like when it's diluted. This one just looks the same, but darker, like more opaque. There's not really anything, like this one has such a nice change to it when it's diluted, but this one obviously just looks like a lighter version of itself when it's diluted. That's fine too. I just want to touch up this jade green a little bit. This one I don't remember it having as much water. It might have. Maybe it just doesn't hold its opacity as well. That's so pretty. So here's a look at the swatch chart all done. Oops, I just ran that into my container. Ah, that's awesome. That's very much me. This is how my day is going. I dropped my bacon on the floor this morning. I cut my finger putting something in the kitchen pantry. Yeah. And I'll probably get yellow all over my desk. So here's a look at the swatch chart. This looks really pretty. I love all the colors. I think there's a good variance for being, let's see, the 6, 12, 18, 24 colors here. I think this is an amazing variety. I know they have bigger sets you can get of the Himi Gouache, but I think that this would be more than enough to get enough to mix out of. So any color you don't see that you might need, or just toning down some colors, is definitely doable with what's here. For your primary colors, definitely lemon yellow would be one, acid blue would be your cyan, rose would be your closest magenta, and there's black and white. So that should be more than enough to get through. I think this is really good. So I'm going to start doing a painting with this. I've never used gouache in like, well, I was going to say 20 years. It's longer. It's longer than that. But I'm starting Birdtober today. So today's first bird is a rooster. So I'm going to sketch out a rooster. I've got some some watercolor paper cut up. And so then we'll do a sample art piece. So just give me a minute and I'll be right back with that. So here's a look at the rooster that I've sketched out. I'm going to put it on this quartered page from Canson Watercolor. I think it's a 9x12 pad that I got this from. And then I just used a corner punched around the edges. Yeah, so I'm going to paint this rooster. It's a black one with little white speckles on top. I am nervous that the colors are going to be too bright and saturated, and I need to make sure that I am toning them down. So I really got to remember my color wheel and how to mute those, which I know, but I'm not a fan of doing all that. So let's get started and paint up this rooster and see how this gouache works. So here's a look at what I have so far. I think it's coming along okay. I find it's kind of slow moving because I have to wait for areas to dry, and I'm just trying to block in colors right now. I tried to do some gradients from the black to the gray with these feathers just as a base, and then I can come back with some details. And then with the tail feathers, I'm finding I have to be very careful to paint or pay attention to what I'm painting, or it's just going to look like a blob. Whereas with watercolor, I can just sketch and throw in some lines and some wash, and it implies feathers. Where this way, I have to be careful, because if I'm not paying attention, I need to define more feathers to make it look like feathery kind of stuff, I guess. But I think it's going okay. It's just slow moving, and I'm used to working with watercolor, so waiting for the layers to dry is a little bit challenging, but it's getting there. I think I'm gonna call that done. I had a lot of fun doing this. I think it turned out okay. The background was my first attempt at using the gouache, and I feel like I just wasn't that great with it because I was still learning how it behaved, so the background's a little weak. I'd probably spend more time on that. And I think I was just anxious in general to get this done because I was worried about how it would turn out if I could do something with it. But yeah, I think it turned out pretty good. The only difference between acrylic gouache and this gouache is just that I don't feel so rushed to do the drawing and painting because it's not going to dry and be totally unusable. I just have so much gouache left over to use. Even if I did, if it did harden and I couldn't reactivate it properly, like I mentioned that it just is watery, it really doesn't matter. I can just mix more. I have a lot. So yeah, pretty happy with that. So I hope you enjoyed this unboxing and review of the Himi Gouache set. I'm pretty happy with it for the money I paid. I guess the thing with me too is that I don't have any professional artist quality gouache, and so I have wanted to get some. This kind of gives me a way to dip my toe into it and see if it's something that I really want to invest in. And so right now I'm just used to doing acrylic gouache, and if I were to paint a piece like this, I would use acrylic gouache instead of gouache. Well, I would have, but this is kind of fun to play with too. Let me know what you think of this review and of the gouache, and if you've used it, what your feelings are, if you use it all the time, or if you have experience with it and what your thoughts are. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you're notified the next time I post more videos to my channel. Thank you so much for watching.